Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the November 15th, 2023 meeting of the Richmond Redevelopment Commission that's been rescheduled. So welcome. I appreciate everyone arranging their schedules so that we can make this meeting happen today. I know it was a little bit of a different time period for us, so thank you. We have a major item on the agenda, but we have a couple of business issues to cover first. So the first thing we'll address would be the approval of the minutes from our meeting of October 17th, 2023. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes? And do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve them.
Second, and I also commend whoever took minutes last time.
Yeah.
The most thorough minutes I've read.
Yeah.
I believe they were probably a readout.
They're really nice.
Yes. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the minutes of October 17th, 2023. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I'd like to drop back for just one moment and make sure that we have a record of the roll. So if you could please call the roll, Josh.
Mike Bloom, absent. Jenny Lawman. Here. Kathy Lucid.
Here.
Gary Turner.
Here.
Allison Zygel.
Here.
Pete Zaleski.
Present.
Excellent.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. We will skip the financials that's on the agenda today. The report is not ready. It will be ready for our next meeting in December. We will move directly into our new business, which is the presentation of the Loop 601 project. And we have several people to speak to it today. And I believe that the first person to speak to it for the city is Emily Palmer.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Emily Palmer, City Controller. Thank you, members of the Redevelopment Commission, for your time and consideration this afternoon. And thank you to everyone here today who's invested their time and expertise in bringing this pivotal project to this point. This project has been a lot of work and a long road of collaboration and partnership. Working together, we can bring this project to life and change the trajectory of our city's downtown. Today, you will hear in detail how this redevelopment project of the former Elder Bierman property into market-rate apartments will impact the heart of Richmond, the opportunity it brings, the economic impact, the projects it will support and complement, and how it will spur growth that will ripple throughout the city. For the purposes of this presentation, I will refer to this project as Loop 601. The investments that we've made and the development that is already happening create a momentum that is critical in attracting a large investment such as this. While working on Loop Phase 1, the city started a new initiative called the PLACE program, which intends to break down barriers for entrepreneurs and promote more locally owned business in our downtown. PLACE will invest in downtown buildings to remove some of the burden from small businesses hoping to operate in these spaces. It will make their application for traditional funding more attractive while providing white box space for retail with residential on the upper floors. PLACE has been such an innovative initiative that has been presented at several city conferences to other mayors and city officials who have used our blueprint to create their own programs to revitalize their downtowns. Additionally, Earlham College has taken notice of this and has included PLACE in their large grant application to Lilly. If successful, this grant will infuse $5 million into PLACE and accelerate the work that we can do through this program. All of this is happening around the epicenter of Richmond events, Elstro Plaza. Elstro Plaza will be a key feature for the tenants of Loop 601 as they walk out of their front door to the farmers market, Shakespeare in the Park, live music, and much more. The Loop and Elstro Plaza have given birth to the Midwest Music Heritage Trail, which is growing and will someday lead visitors on a walking tour of Richmond's jazz history. Walking out of the front door of Loop 601 can mean walking straight into our new pocket park that will serve as an invitation into Elstro Plaza thanks to the State of Indiana's READY program. A quick walk down the street, a night out at the theater, a 74-mile bike ride up the Cardinal Greenway, or a day at one of the many planned amenities in the Gorge, there won't be many places that can offer a lifestyle as unique as life at Loop 601. This project will also serve as an economic engine for downtown Richmond. As these units fill up, there will be 200 to 300 people living downtown that will need everything from groceries to coffee, food, shopping, haircuts, and more. Downtown business owners are already making plans for expansions and unique offerings that will give these people and their friends and family places to gather and enjoy spending time in our city. Life at Loop 601 will not only feature amenities specific to the development itself. It will be a place to live that will connect people to the best local food, drink, shopping, entertainment, and recreation that Richmond has to offer. And it's just the beginning. A project like this is the hallmark of a city on a strong comeback and will reignite belief in the city's potential. There won't be any doubt once our citizens know that their downtown is healthy, thriving, and growing once again. As I stated at the start of this presentation, this has been a collaborative effort. This project has only come this far because of the partners at the table. This has been an effort that has involved the city team, the EDC, county commissioners, and soon city and county council. There has also been significant support from the IEDC and Governor Holcomb, who, because of this project, chaired an IEDC meeting in Richmond requesting a presentation on Loop 601. We have in front of us the opportunity we've long awaited to see, and together we can see this project come to life and get to work on what comes next. Thank you again for your time today, and I will now turn it over to Mayor-elect Ron Oler.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you,
Welcome,
Commissioners.
Mayor-elect.
Hi, Ron Oler, Mayor-elect. There you go, 3 minutes. Thank you, Commissioners, for being flexible and choosing to meet on this day, and thank you, everyone in the audience, for coming out today. I want to make it clear that my administration is 100% in favor of this project. This project is critical to revitalization of downtown. I believe earnestly within the next 3 or 4 years, we'll see $100 million invested downtown. This first corner is the hinge pin of starting some of these other investments. Now, some people in the community are opposed to moving this forward because we don't have a master plan downtown. So, and it's true. Previous administration never did come up with a good master plan, but I assure you, we will work on a master plan downtown. We're about 2 weeks to closing on this project, and there's local banks that want to invest in this. So I 100% moving forward with this to get it rolling, and then we'll continue. When I spoke to the Economic Development Corp last week, I said, this is going to take 2 to 3 years to finish to build. By that time, we'll be doing other projects downtown. So the downtown will take off even before this is completed. So if you don't know a little bit of the history of the building, it was built in 1969 after the explosion. Terrible, horrible, very bad, no good day in Richmond. It was built to attract the Elder Beerman stores out of Dayton, Ohio, to build a huge department store downtown, and it was great. It was wonderful. And we have someone in the audience tonight who helped make the promenade. Now it had its season down there, too. The city owned the building and the 2 parking lots for decades until Bonton Stores bought the Elder Beerman companies and another company, and Bonton owns buildings. They didn't want to lease from the city, so we sold it to them at a reasonable price, but we maintained the 2 parking lots. Later, when Bonton went bankrupt, we, some council members, county council, EDC, got together and we purchased the building for $300,000 to keep it in local hands and take control of it. Our hope was the first developer had a really good idea of some commercial space on the ground floor, some apartments on the upper floor, but once they got into it, the reason Elder Beerman agreed to move there is because we built an explosion-proof building with poured walls and poured roof, lots of concrete. So to put windows in it and doors in it, put apartments up was becoming cost prohibitive. And the other biggest problem was this building was designed not for a building with 30 kitchens and 30 other rooms, but is designed basically with 4 restrooms in mind. So there's the infrastructure underneath it is totally wrong for any other purpose other than what it was. And unfortunately, that's not going to come back. Big box retail stores aren't coming back to downtowns like Richmond. I wish they were. And even our mall struggles to fill, so COVID took care of that. So it's nothing we did, it's just the whole country changed on retail. So moving forward with this, demolishing that building, recycling all the concrete and steel as much as we can. Just like the EPA today had an announcement, a press conference at the fire site. The first step is to clean the asbestos off the old steel, mangled steel, and they're selling it to a local recycler. So kind of the same approach here. But getting these market rate apartments downtown, another argument was we're competing with the building owners who want to put lofts downtown, but it's a different customer, a different clientele. You're going to do your full presentation in a minute, right? So their clientele, the people who want to live in this apartment complex, is different from people who want the privacy of having an upstairs loft. This is something entirely different. And from what I understand from the market studies, the housing studies, and hearing from 2 large local corporations who are willing to do some contract rental on multiple apartment units so they can move staff in and out, there's a good market for this. So I hope you'll move forward with this, and I appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much. Valerie, I believe you have the next spot on the agenda.
Yes, good afternoon. Valerie Schaefer, President of the Economic Development Corporation, and I have with me here Darren Kittner. He is the developer with Flaherty and Collins, who will be co-presenting today with me.
Welcome.
So here you have a rendering of the corner of 6th and Main of what this property could look like. It still has to go through a lot of architectural work and design, but this is a rendering that we felt could closely represent what this corner could be transformed to look like should we pursue with Loop 601. Ron already did a great job of presenting the history of the property. I have to give credit, though, to former Commissioner Ken Paust here with us today, who really led the charge in wanting to take control of the fate of this property and put together a task force of city and county representatives and several community leaders. There were 15 or 20 of us that really studied the opportunity of this property and made the decision to take the leap and acquire the building in August of 2018. As Mayor Oler said, we paid a mere $300,000 for it. And once we closed on the property in January 2019, we immediately started looking at redevelopment opportunities. And as Ron again mentioned, that was just not a feasible redevelopment project. We could not find a developer interested in that opportunity. This was just a little bit of the layout that RQAW put together for us with the feasibility study, because we had a whole marketing plan and put together an RFP that we sent out to developers, really trying hard to redevelop the structure as it currently sits. But again, we're unsuccessful in that endeavor. This was a rendering they put together of what the existing structure could be transformed into. However, the exterior that you see there, that alone cost $7.3 million. And that was estimated, 4 or 5 years ago, so imagine what that would have cost today. So once we determined that redevelopment was not an opportunity, we shifted to the idea of a new development on the property. The task force that Commissioner Paust had put together, when we decided to buy the building, we decided as a group that we would hold the building for 3 years and give it a fair shot of finding a developer to redevelop that property. That resulted in nothing, and so we had determined at that time we would tear the building down and then go out and market the development pad that also includes the existing parking lot as one development opportunity, with the opportunity to close Service Street in between the existing structure and the parking lot today. So that's when we stumbled across Flaherty and Collins. Flaherty and Collins is a class act when it comes to developing. I'd really like to turn it over to Darren just so you can hear about all of the developments across the state of Indiana and across the nation. When we first met Darren, Commissioner Paust, myself, and Sarah Mitchell in my office, we took a road trip and we physically saw properties that they had developed in Indianapolis and Brownsburg and Fishers to see firsthand the quality of the development and to envision of what that would look like here in Richmond, and we were thoroughly impressed. Since then, we've had a lot of conversations with community leaders in communities where they've built and have heard nothing but great things about the partnership that they've come up with and their ability to deliver on what they propose for the community. So now I'll turn it over to Darren.
Thank you, Valerie. Again, Darren Kentner with Flaherty and Collins. We're based in Indianapolis, but we really do work all throughout the Midwest and beyond. And we're kind of laser focused, and these are the only type of projects we do. If this was a office building or a hotel, we would say we could probably pull it off, but you'd probably find someone else a little more experienced, qualified to do it. But we only do multifamily apartments and typically urban infill projects like this. Always public-private partnerships, working with communities to deliver projects that the market would support on its own. So as Valerie mentioned, I was here probably 3 years ago now, to talk about another project, and then just in kind of casual conversation, the Elder Beerman site was mentioned, and trying to figure out something to do with that. And I think the whole rest of the meeting, my head was on the Elder Beerman site and not on the other project, I hate to admit. But like I said, we've done probably 30 to 40 of these projects. We believe we've done more than anyone in the country, not really a category that anyone tracks. But again, it's all we do. We don't go and buy land and do, traditional garden-style apartment complexes like you're used to seeing. We probably did that the first 15 years of our existence, but for the last 15-plus years, we've been focused on these urban infill projects. And I said this in the meeting last week with the EDC is the only thing these really have in common with apartments that you're probably used to seeing, what I was used to seeing, is people pay by the month to rent there. But these are intended to be highly amenitized, feel more like a resort than an apartment. So it's very communal. There's a lot of energy, very dynamic, and we try to have all the bells and whistles you could think of, because the people who live here will by and large be renters by choice. They could live elsewhere, they could own a home, but they're attracted to this sort of lifestyle and this living arrangement. Typically, we see about 60 to 70% of the residents will be young professionals, and the other 30-40% are empty nesters. I think 8-9 years ago when I started, that might have been a 90-10 number, but what we're seeing is a lot more empty nesters are also desirous of this sort of living arrangement. They want to get out of the home and the yard they got to take care of, and they too want to live amongst others and be able to walk to get coffee or walk to dinner and to events and festivals and whatnot. So that's what we see really across the board in our properties. So we have no reason to think it wouldn't be exactly that here as well. So I've probably missed a lot on the company, but yeah. So again, just in Indiana, we've done projects similar to this, certainly in Indianapolis, but also smaller communities, and that it doesn't have to be a major metropolitan area. She mentioned Brownsburg and Fishers. We've done Kokomo, Mishawaka, LaPorte, Michigan City, New Albany, Columbus, Indiana, Lawrenceburg, Indiana. All similar projects to this, and all have been successful. I mean, quite frankly, projects like this a lot of times are more successful than the large high-rise projects you see downtown somewhere. Those are a lot more expensive, come with a lot more risk, but we've done this enough to feel pretty good that if we build this, that the people of Richmond will, and not just people of Richmond, people from all around will be drawn to it and want to live in this sort of environment. Another kind of demographic note, typically in our projects, our residents come from one of three buckets, not literally a bucket, but yeah. A third of them will already live in Richmond and just will choose to live here. Another third would live in the area but outside of Richmond. And then the last third are new to the entire area. So we track that, and again, it's pretty consistent amongst all of our properties, regardless of where they're located. So, that's not only brings more people to your city, right? It helps with the local income tax and more people spending money in your businesses. So I thought it'd be relevant to mention that. So this is our project in Fishers. If you've been to Fishers lately, you know that it has grown substantially. We were the first development that occurred there of any size. Certainly there had been development over the decades in Fishers, but this was the first large-scale one that was on one of their municipal parking lots, and after this, it's led to, a few hundred other apartments being built, a new office building. We like to say it led to the IKEA and the Topgolf that's there. So this is in Fishers. It's, I think 250 units. It has a lot, about 17,000 square feet of retail and a parking garage. So, and the projects I'm showing you, you would expect to see similar quality, similar amenities that we put there, we'll do here. There's no bait and switch or anything like that. This is what we call Whiskey River in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. It's similar size here. It's also about 150 units, like we're proposing here in Richmond. Has probably been our most successful property of anyone we have in our portfolio, despite Lawrenceburg being the smallest city we're in by far. But it was something that was sorely needed, and the people of Lawrenceburg love it. And, it's drawn a lot of people from northern Kentucky and Ohio as well. The Arbuckle and Brownsburg, similar story. If you've been to downtown Brownsburg, up until about 5 years ago, you had Town Hall and you had a CVS and a Walgreens. That was their downtown. So they were trying to create, different than here, you guys have a authentic, long-standing downtown. They were trying to create one. And we were selected to be the first project there. And again, a similar project to what we've seen in Fishers and elsewhere. And we're finishing up, it's been so successful, we're just finishing up a phase 2 that'll open in February that will accompany this project. Yeah, we talked a lot about the amenities and how these are supposed to be feel like a resort and not an apartment complex. And, so, we have club room, a lot of times billiards or other games. Bikes are important to our residents. They're active. So we have a, bike room, and sometimes we include a bike repair shop that, they can work on their own bikes there. A business center. And this is even more important since COVID. We always had a fair amount of people who worked from home or, would be in sales and, their home office was their apartment. But that's an increasing number and it's grown a lot since COVID. So not only having like space for them to work or co-working space we call it, but a lot of them are wanting like individual conference rooms. So if their boss is coming in for the day, they can have some privacy in the conference room, or if they need to have a call, they can do that there. So we're adding those as well. Fitness center is big and include on-demand fitness, like group fitness workouts, but essentially you may keep it, but you don't need a gym membership if you live here, because we'll have essentially all you could want in our fitness rooms. We always put a pool and I got ahead of myself. That says pet spa, not pool. So I mentioned bikes earlier being our residents, bikes being popular with them, even more so our pets. So we won't get a lot of children in this sort of environment. We welcome them, but it's just, if you have, family with children, you're probably looking for a different sort of setup. But we do have a lot of pets, and with that we have, a pet bath, pet spa, and, pets will be very, very common. We'll have a dog run or dog park that you would call it within the property that residents can let their dogs out in to use. May or may not have a guest suite. Sometimes we do. Those aren't, that varies by project. And then again, the co-working lounge space, which really is just a lot of couches and chairs, and people can come, with electricity hookups and whatnot that people can hang out and do work in. So this is just, if you can see it, this is just a list of projects that we've done, the cost and kind of our role in them. We're always the developer, obviously, on the front end. We're also generally the contractor, especially if it's in and around Indiana. You start getting out of market where we don't have the relationship with subs, we'll hire a local general contractor. But we also handle property management. So you'll always be interfacing with Flaherty and Collins people, whether it's me, I'm not going anywhere, but also the on-site staff will be Flaherty and Collins property employees. So again, just further list, again, I think there's 20 or 30 listed there, but I think we're approaching or past 30 now in the number of projects we've done that are very similar to this.
So just want to reinforce what Emily had already mentioned, that this project really does build upon investments that have already been made in and around the downtown. That includes the Whitewater Gorge Connector Trail, the Gorge Activation Plan that I know the Redevelopment Commission has been very involved in, as well as the Loop that you've been involved in, and Elstro Plaza. That's a great success story for downtown Richmond. So we really feel like the location of this development complements all of those existing investments that have already been made in our community. So now we'll get into the project scope and financial contribution. So I'll invite Darren to kind of talk about what the scope of this will look like for Richmond.
Yeah, I mentioned this earlier. We're looking at about 150 apartment homes here. Once the architects really dive in on the design and they insert walls and corridors and, mechanicals, that might not be 149, it might be 154, but it's generally 150 units. What you'll find is a mix of studio, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom, but it's really 1 and 2 bedrooms. There'll be a few studios and maybe a few, I don't even know if there'll be 3-bedroom, probably large, what we'd call large 2-bedroom. But the bulk of the building will be 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units. And again, that's, most of the apartments you're used to seeing probably have a majority of 2 and 3 bedrooms because they're, there's kids and families and whatnot, and that's not what this is built for. The interior and exterior amenities that we went over earlier is what you can expect to see here. We've also have about 4,000 square feet of first floor commercial space there to help activate the street and provide even more life. we didn't want to put too much there in large part because retail is really tough and it struggles everywhere. And because it is tough, we didn't want to be additional competition for the existing businesses that have been downtown for much longer than us, and it wouldn't be fair to come in and throw too much there. But we do want a little bit, like I said, try to activate the street and provide even more energy. And then our residents will use both the existing parking garage as well as the surface parking that fits on the site there. It's probably about half and half is how it'll eventually play out.
So again, this is just another view of the rendering to help you envision what this project will look like on the corner. Oh, Josh, I'm having some issues. I'm going backwards now. Here we go. Okay, so this is a rendering of what the property will look like on the development pad. You can see parking on the east side of the property, sort of in an L shape. That's what Darren mentioned, having some surface parking, but we do intend to allot 100 parking spaces in the city garage as well, so residents can choose to rent space in the garage or utilize surface parking. But there'll also be some parking along 6th Street as well. So you might describe the walk-up potential.
Yeah, they're along 6th Street. Most of the apartments, especially the upper ones, there'll be no choice, but they'll be entered through the internal corridors, which you'll also be able to do on the first floor. But we'll also, along 6th Street, have external entry, and really build up like a townhome or a walk-up unit that you would see like in Chicago or somewhere. Some residents love that, some hate it, some want to be on high floor possible, others love that direct access from the ground floor. So it also kind of helps differentiate the look and provide some activity there along the street level.
And then the area in red, that will be the 4,000 square feet of commercial space that Darren mentioned. And the area in yellow, that will be where the majority of the interior amenities will be placed. So now we get into the project budget. This is roughly a $36.6 million project. That, of course, is subject to change as the project actually goes out to construction bid. We have Flaherty and Collins investment at $21.667 million plus. And that plus means if the project scope increases, Flaherty and Collins will be responsible for making that additional investment. We will not be asked as a community to invest any more of the project if the costs go up once that's put out to bid. Is there anything else you'd like to say about that?
Let's hope it doesn't, but yeah, that's true.
And the reason it took us so long to get to this point, to bring this project forward for your consideration today, is the amount of time that we've spent working on drawing down state programs. We worked for 2 years on the READY grant application to the IEDC, and Wayne County's allocation of $2.95 million is allocated to this project. We only have $2.5 million as part of the actual financial commitment to the project because we're reserving some funding to make some improvements in and around the site that might be needed after the building's demolished. Emily talked about a potential pocket park across the street as an entryway into Elstro Plaza. There could be some upgrades to the parking garage that need to be made. So we wanted to retain some of those ready funds to be able to invest around the site to ensure that we have the financial support needed for that. And then we have the redevelopment tax credits. Flaherty and Collins was actually the applicant to the IEDC for these tax credits, and they were awarded $4 million for this project. But once those tax credits are actually sold, it will net about $3.6 million that can be infused in this project. And so that left a gap of $8.9 million for our local commitment in order to bring this project to fruition. What we are proposing to complete that gap is a cash contribution from the Richmond Redevelopment Commission in the amount of $3,450,000 that would come from existing TIF revenue. And then we have roughly a $3.1 million TIF bond that will actually generate $2,450,000 in cash towards the project. It's a $3.1 million bond, and then after interest and fees, that's what leaves us with the $2,450,000. And I'm really happy to share that we've worked very collaboratively with both Wayne Bank and First Bank Richmond in town, who agreed to split the bond purchase and be partners with us in this project. And that is simply a project-based TIF bond. That is not pulling from the existing TIF district. That will be an allocation of 90% of future tax revenue from this project for 25 years. So we will not be pulling any other funds from the TIF district. And then there is a $2 million ask that will go before the Wayne County Council and Commissioners this evening from the Consolidated Edit Fund. The meeting that Darren referenced last week with the Economic Development Corporation Board was also asked for that $2 million in Consolidated Edit, and the board did recommend approval to the county. That will be further considered this evening. And then lastly, we have a $1 million contribution from the Wayne County Foundation. They have created a new impact investing program where they are looking at taking money out of Wall Street and investing it on Main Street. So essentially, they're looking at impactful community projects that they see value in, that they know will really turn a tide in the community. That is a loan. That is not a grant. That loan is with the terms of to be paid back in 5 years at a rate of 5%, and that is being proposed to also be paid back from the Richmond Redevelopment Commission, at roughly $210,000 per year over 5 years. Are there any questions about the project budget and the local commitment at this time?
Just to clarify, the cash contribution of 3.45 and the $1 million loan would come out of the Richmond TIF district, which is the downtown TIF district, and then the bond will actually be paid directly from the new allocation zone that's been set up, what is currently the Elder Bremen property.
That is correct.
Okay,
Yes.
just
And if,
for clarity.
regarding the TIF bond, if there is any shortfall, it is up to the developer to then make up that gap and make the bond debt payments. I do want to briefly mention that as part of our READY application process to the IEDC, Ernst & Young conducted an economic impact study regarding this project specifically, and just the construction impact alone over the short term will create about 528 construction jobs, generating $25 million in labor income and $54 million in total economic output in Wayne County. The $925,000 tax revenue, that's mostly generated from local income tax. And then we have household impact. Because we don't know how many individuals or couples will live or move to the community to live in this property, they're estimating that spending could increase anywhere from $600,000 to $1.8 million per year and create an incremental 4 to 11 jobs, mostly in the service industry, and 28 restaurant jobs. Again, $34,000 to $44,000 of ongoing annual tax revenue, mostly derived from income tax from those jobs. And then I really want to mention the high demand for housing in the community. So when a lot of people think about this project, they're looking at from the viewpoint of the impact it will make to our downtown and our revitalization efforts. But I'd also like for you to consider the impact that it will make to the demand in the housing market. Back in 2021, we contracted with Tracy Cross and Associates to conduct a housing study, and then they indicated we had a 1.1% vacancy rate for market rate apartments in Richmond. Very, very tight. And further, they identified that we needed about 225 market rate units over 5 years developed in this community. Since then, we have updated that study. And we just got the results last week. It's in draft form, so I didn't want to include these numbers until it was finalized. But the demand for market rate housing has since increased to where we need 800 units over the next 5 years. And they're estimating that 575 of those specifically are needed in Richmond, and then the greater 800 in Wayne County. So the demand has only increased for this type of housing. And in 2021, of the recommendations as a result of that report, they really thought we should focus on housing for young professionals, couples without children, or in early stages of family formation, and empty nesters. So we really feel like that this project really fits what was recommended at that time that we pursue in Richmond and Wayne County. So just to kind of, in closing, talk about the future of downtown. So in addition to Loop Phase 2 that you're well aware of and engaged in, as well as the Gorge Activation Plan, now is a great time for us to be making this investment in our community because we're able to not only invest in this project, but we're also investing in our future property owners. We've been fortunate enough to have Richmond Common Council recently adopt the strategic investment plan that was developed by several community leaders through leadership at Wayne County government. But you've allocated or appropriated $1 million from your American Rescue Plan Act funds to invest in downtown revitalization. So under Mayor-elect Ron Oler's administration, they will be tasked with developing that grant program for existing building owners. So I've heard a lot of people say, why are we investing in this big development when we're not helping our existing property owners? But we are doing both, and we can do both. And so now is a great time to demonstrate that we're investing to invest in our citizens that have owned properties for many years and need that additional help from the community, but also investing in our future through a large-scale development that can really be a catalyst for future downtown revitalization. So with that, we will open it up for questions.
Thank you very much, Valerie and Darren. I appreciate your time and work that's gone into it. I originally sat with your committee on what to do with the Elder Beerman building shortly after it closed, so I know the amount of due diligence that has gone into looking at options for that building, and certainly see this as the most feasible thing that we've seen so far. Mm-hmm. Appreciate all your work and attention. I have a few questions. What's the average length of rentals that you see in your properties? How long are people resident before they move on to something else?
I don't know if I can answer that directly. I will say generally, our leases are for a year.
Right.
Doesn't mean we won't do a 6-month lease if there's certain circumstances, but by and large, we want them to be a year. There are sometimes there's corporate leases where, be long-term to that corporate entity, but they're shuffling different people in there at various different time periods. I will tell you 50% of leases roll in probably any apartment project, 50% of your leases will move out after a year. In a project like this, that's probably closer to 40. They stay longer in this sort of project, but there's still a fair amount of turnover. That is one of the things that people are drawn to this. It gives them more flexibility. They can try it out. They like it, great. Or if they decide they're going to move, or they want to live there for a year before they buy a home, or they have a change in their marital situation and it's short term. So I don't know if there's a good answer on the average tenure. I would say it's somewhere on average around 18 months if I had to guess. Some of them are going to be longer. Actually, it's probably more than that because there are some people who might live there 10 years, and that's going to skew the number a little higher. So if I had to guess, I would say it's between 1.5 years and 2 years on average. And there, like I said, there'll be some who will live there a year and some will live there, for a while. So,
thank you. And Valerie, I assume in the study that was done on the housing analysis that the rent that is being proposed is in line with what is appropriate for the market?
Yes, it is. I believe you said the average rental rate is $13.50 per month.
probably not today, but that's what we're anticipating when we open in 3 years.
Mm-hmm. And the range is anywhere from $975 up to $1,800 for the very large 2-bedroom, 2-bath den units. And yes, it is very much in line with what the housing study indicated.
And I would add, to the extent it's relevant, it's also in line with what we're seeing in what I would say are similar cities of Kokomo, LaPorte, Elkhart, Lawrenceburg, Columbus, Indiana. They're all right there or even higher. So.
And F&C would own the building and manage it?
Yes. Yes.
Looking at the finances, if Redevelopment Commission decides to pursue the $3.3 million, I would assume would be immediately earmarked and then the dollars dispersed as bills are received? I look to our accounting people here.
Actually, why don't you go?
Typically, what happens is they would, whoever is our construction lender for the, our construction loans will be somewhere around, hopefully 20 million. They would hold those proceeds and be part of they would disperse it on your behalf as they're in the business of dispersing the proceeds. And typically they'll if there's some TIF dollars, they'll want to hold them. So typically when the bonds are issued, and they won't be issued for, 6 to 12 months, depending on when we actually get to closing. Those are usually held by the construction lender and dispersed on behalf of the city, with the city having as much or as little involvement as they want. Some cities are kept in the loop on it. Other cities say, hey, you're a bank, you know what you're doing, we'll trust that you got it. So that's how we typically see it. I don't know if there's a way.
So it would be an immediate disbursement from us to you to be held for,
It wouldn't be to us, it would be to the bank.
To the bank.
Yeah, it wouldn't go through us to get to the bank. There would be an agreement or arrangement there.
okay. So we would not be dispersing the funds per se, it would just be one lump sum to the bank at the appropriate time. Okay. Other questions?
And that time would be at or around closing?
Yes, on the finance. So right now, we need, if we get the approvals that we're seeking, we then kind of unleash the architects and they go away for months and months and turn what's just a
They're really
rendering.
terrible.
Turn what's a rendering into a very detailed set of drawings that lay everything out and, show how it's going to operate and how it's going to be built. And that takes months, probably at least 6 months to do. Then you got to get permits, you got to get bidding on the construction. So we generally say, hey, it's a year. I think here it can be less. But that's why I think it's, probably, second half of 2024 when closing would occur, whether that's
Right.
August or October. I don't know for sure, but.
Right.
We as a community have a lot of work to do to demolish the building between now and then. And so because.
I'm sorry, Valerie, we had a little side. Could you please repeat that?
I said, and the community has a lot of work to do to demolish the building
Yes.
in that timeframe. So while we're waiting to get to closing, the city of Richmond, since you own the property, the city will be drawing down the ready funds and handling the demolition contract and getting the site pad ready to then transfer ownership to the developer once all the ready disbursements have been made and invested into the project.
I'm eager to see into the future as much as possible. I know we can't do that, but I'm thinking of the communities that you've named that are closest to Richmond's kind of where they are, the Kokomo's and the Elkharts, not so much the Fishers and the Indianapolises. I'm assuming you're seeing that it is propping up and helping some of the existing businesses around these, and as well as spurring other businesses.
Absolutely.
I know that was your goal, but
Yeah.
have you seen
we are.
proof of that?
I'll be honest, it's hard to see proof. I know the businesses are happy. We don't see their financials, but I know that on the front end, they're some of our biggest supporters, and they always seem happy that, we're there. So, absolutely.
Okay.
And I will say our residents, we always use this example, we put really nice kitchens in there, and they never get used because you're living here, you're going out to eat, or you're going to friends' houses a lot. So, or if you eat in your kitchen, it's because you got carry out from somewhere and you're just eating there. So it's just, by virtue of that, it's hard to think that it's not extremely impactful.
I have two comments or questions. Can you foresee what's going to happen when the demo process and construction happens for our current business owners that are in that, kind of in that zone? Will they still be able to continue business as usual? Or, I mean, I know you can't look into the future, but we have to look out for them as well while this is all going on, because it's such a lengthy process and project.
Yeah, I don't think we'll know exactly until we actually select a demo contractor and talk with them about the process and what might happen around the site during demolition. But we have been communicating with the owners of Sweet Blessing specifically because they would be the most impacted. They may have to vacate for a short period of time. We've offered to help find them some temporary space to operate their bakery. So that's the one entity that could be displaced for a short period of time. How long, I do not know yet. I'm not an expert in that. Maybe you can speak to any experience.
Well, I was going to, on one hand, I'm not aware of any property ever having to close down because of construction of one of our projects. But they typically don't have a demo component to it like this has that the city's going to be doing before we come in to build. I guess, that would, if it was ever going to be demoed, that would be the case regardless of the project. But especially because there's a decent amount of space there, I don't think when we actually are constructing our building that there'd be any reason that any businesses would have to be closed.
Okay. And then I can directly speak about the depot that's in Fishers. My daughter moved back from the Austin, Texas area. She was really trying to find housing while she was having a home built. And with the help, our help as well, found a safe, secure, great place, which was the depot. But I can speak firsthand, quality, all of that, superb. But just the hub around that, where I don't know how many residents live there, but it was a buzz of businesses. The Nickel Plate area, they have an amphitheater, which we already have one. They built that around their walking paths. Businesses, hair salons, winery places, coffee shops. And because there were so many people in that area, those businesses seemed to be just thriving. And I could envision something similar happening for us. It gave her a great solution for while her home was being built. It was just like a short-term lease. But her rent was quite substantially more than what you were talking about because it was the Fishers area. So I'm glad to hear that it's something that's going to be something that would be affordable for our area and to be able to live in more of a luxury living market rate. So, yeah, so I can speak directly about the quality of the build was fantastic.
Thank you for that. Appreciate hearing it and glad that she had a good experience.
Yeah.
I thought that's where you're going to go, but I didn't.
Yeah, it was great. It was awesome.
Never know, do you?
Well, and she worked. She and her partner worked from that entity, and he had an opportunity to be able to plug in and work outside of just their very, very small apartment because he could work in the public spaces. So yeah, it's they thought of a lot of things for that lifestyle that they were looking for.
Good endorsement.
Yeah, well, I don't mean to endorse or not, but I'm just saying, speaking from total experience, yes.
Excellent.
So we do have Lisa Lee here to talk to you about the project agreement that you were sent in advance, if you're ready for her.
Yes. Okay. Any other questions before Lisa?
I have just a couple questions on impact of the downtown businesses. When I look at some of the other projects, you have Brownsburg with 208 units and 400 spaces of parking. Not all of them had parking space numbers. 336 units, 436 spots.
The Brownsburg specifically has over 100 of public parking that the town wanted added to the garage for visitors to the area.
So downtown parking has been a hot topic for downtown businesses for ever, to be honest. So just looking at the ratio of 150 units to 200 parking spaces, ballpark-ish, does that seem like a reasonable number to accommodate the needs of, is 200 spots enough to accommodate 150 units plus guests and whatnot?
Yeah, so good question. And what we typically see is the actual utilization is about 1.2 to 1.25 per unit. So you can do that math. I just did it this week for another project, but we looked at Kokomo. There we have 200 units, I think 199 to be precise. And our residents, the project parking utilization is 240. So again, about 1.2. You apply the 1.2 if there's, and there's more 2 bedrooms than I think we're going to have here. But it's a similar thing. So that would mean you need 180. I'd also say parking companies, operators will swear to you and tell you that it's a certainty. You will always have at least 10% of your people who aren't there, right? Whether they're at work, their car is getting worked on, they're staying at their friend's house, they're on vacation. you can set your clock to, you'll always have at least 10% who won't be there at a time. So, again, we have in 200 units, we have 240 parking passes that they utilize, and probably, though, there's only 220 that are there at a given time. So, yes, we believe that there's, and I think, look, if, there's more capacity in the garage, should it be needed, but we've sized this so that there's ample parking.
And I've had other concerns. It is not with you as developer. It's been the downtown long-term plan. And Ron referenced that. I'm one that has been pretty vocal, more vocal about there not being a plan for downtown, and dropping a building on one corner doesn't fix the whole of downtown. So I guess my message for Ron is we got to get a plan for downtown. I mean, with just flailing is what downtown has been doing for a long time. And then as schools representative on here, I just did some quick math. I believe I heard a projected estimate valuation for taxes is going to be about $15 million. 16.3. Okay. So conservative estimate at a 2% tax rate worked out to about $300,000. My concern is we're just adding 150 housing units, and again, $0 of tax revenue to the schools. So there's zero. Again, we're pulling money away from the schools, as we've done with this TIF district for many, many years.
So they should not be adding.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if we're adding. I can tell you, doesn't mean there couldn't be one or two, but it'd be in Brownsburg, I believe. Typically, all the school-age children that live there because one of their parents moved in there, part of a separation. So they weren't new to the school district; they were already there. So it's just not. If you think about it, if you have school-age children, they're probably not going to want to live in 1,000 square foot.
While I understand exactly what you're saying, we are opening up other housing where there potentially are going to be kids, and the schools' tax revenue is not just from residential, it's from commercial, residential, the complete mix that all government taxing units receive their income from. So, and this downtown TIF district has a revenue it's been over 2.4 million, and just looking at the school's percentage of taxes it eats into school's budget. That
Well,
really
we
is
do
the
share
foundation
some
to
of
make it bigger.
the revenue from the TIF district with the school district.
Right, $50,000
Is an earmark.
is an earmark, and even if you look at a state average of 43% is normally what the school's portion of a tax bill is. You take that by 2.4 million, it's a big difference.
Well, I think we also have to look at the fact that the building right now is not generating anything. And we have a lot of land that's underutilized at this point, and we have an opportunity now to start generating those dollars that can go into that pot that can eventually be allocated, and also generate additional businesses around the development that will also generate more dollars to the TIF area. So I think we're looking at something that's very additive versus what we have right now.
Okay. I just wanted to point out that the school's portion.
Thank you, Pete. Other questions? Okay, I think we're ready for Lisa.
Lisa Lee with Ice Miller,
Afternoon,
serving
Lisa.
as bond and special counsel to the city and the Redevelopment Commission on this project. So Valerie has mentioned to you, and President Luce had mentioned that you guys have been working on this since 2018. So this is actually the beginning of the public approvals for this project, and it is just the beginning. It will have to go to the Common Council a couple times. There will be a public hearing in front of the Economic Development Commission, and we will be coming back to you later, probably your December 12th meeting, to ask for a pledge of the project TIF revenues to the bonds and then the cash contribution. That would be, so you'll get your December distribution and your June of '24 before you would need to pay out the cash contribution that Valerie was talking about. And that would go to a bank. Hopefully his construction lender can also be the bond trustee. It does have to be held by a trustee that has a fiduciary duty to the city. So, but they can serve as the same kind of approval process for those disbursements. You have in front of you Resolution Number 11-2023. This approves in substantially final form the project agreement, and from our legal perspective, substantially final form really means the total city contribution, which is maxed out at $11,400,000, which is what Valerie showed on the screen. She showed the 8.9 plus the 2.5 of ready funds. That's the 11.4 that is defined as the city contribution in the project agreement. So if that amount were to need to go up, we would have to come back to you for approval of an amendment to the project agreement. So that is the maximum city contribution that you would be approving through this entire process. I'm happy to go through. I don't know how much you want to actually go through the project agreement, or if you just want to ask some questions, and I might need Darren's help to answer some of those, but.
Well, I think it would be helpful for everyone to understand that the resolution before us today is not one where we are actually committing the dollars yet.
Exactly.
It is a commitment to the project. Is that
Correct. That is correct. That is
And it will
correct.
then go to, what's the next route that this will follow?
The next route would be that this would go to the Common Council to consider a bond ordinance, an introduction of a bond ordinance that would approve a maximum size of bond that Valerie mentioned. It would also approve what we refer to as a forgivable loan, which is for the cash contribution piece. Because for you to provide cash into a private project, you still need to go through an approval process that authorizes the developer to use those funds. So in other words, not public bidding that the city would normally have to do. So that's when I refer to a forgivable loan as we go on through the process. It's really to approve all the different cash contributions, the foundation money, the TIF money, and any Wayne County money. That would all go through that forgivable loan so that it can be dispersed to the developer to do all the construction. And that's under the EDC statute. So Common Council is next. Then we would have a notice of a public hearing for the Economic Development Commission. And then the Economic Development Commission would hold that public hearing on the project, and the public has a right to then be heard. And the Economic Development Commission, after that hearing, would then make a recommendation that they adopt the bond ordinance and forgivable note ordinance, or that they do not adopt it. The council always has the option to go ahead and adopt, regardless of the recommendation that comes from the Economic Development Commission. But that would then go back to the Common Council to hopefully have them adopt the bond and note ordinances, and then it would come back to actually, it would come back here first, before that public hearing in your December 12th, unless we want to move those, some of these approvals into early of '24.
Okay, I'm a little bit confused.
Okay.
It's going to go to Common Council, and then it comes back to us for public hearing?
The
before it
way
goes
the
to
timetable is
EDC?
laid out right now is that we were trying to get the approvals, but I don't think that it's absolutely necessary that all the approvals occur in 2023, that we could spread out a little bit more into early '24, since the bonds will not be issued until later in '24. So it would go to the Common Council next to introduce the bond ordinance.
Mm-hmm.
Then, under the current timetable, it would come back here
Okay.
for the cash contribution and the pledge to the bonds.
Is that a public hearing?
No. The only public hearing that is required, now you can certainly open the floor to the public to discuss the project, but the only statutory public hearing required is with the Economic Development Commission.
So it would go to us and then back, and then to the EDC for
And then to
public hearing.
EDC for a public hearing, and then back to the
council.
council for final approval.
And it comes to council as a resolution,
Ordinance.
so it'll
That's why
have-
you would introduce it,
then it'll have a public
and then we'll
hearing.
come back here for the approvals of the TIF pledge and the cash contribution. Then the EDC would hold their hearing. Then it would go back to the council to hopefully adopt,
Right,
final adoption of the ordinance.
right. Well, when we consider the ordinance, that'll be a public hearing.
That's absolutely fine. It's not legally required. It might be required by your local rules, and I know that
it is.
the council does do public hearings on those, so.
Okay. Would this resolution before us today be considered a declaratory resolution then?
No, it is not. This is, you're used to the declaratory confirmatory process.
Yes.
This is actually approving the form of project agreement. The next resolution we would bring on the 12th would be approving the cash contribution and the TIF pledge. So we're not amending the area. We've already done that. We already carved out the allocation area, so that's all set up. We added this project to your economic development plan during that amendment process, so we don't have to do that as a part of this. These are standalone resolutions. And you see a lot of recitals. The recitals are just kind of telling the story. They define the project, they make all the different statutory findings that are required, and then, of public utility and benefit, you know, the duty to promote the use of land in the manner that best helps the city, et cetera. That's one of your duties of the Redevelopment Commission. And then it's really on page 2 where we provide the public purpose, and then paragraph 2 is the actual approval of the substantially final form of the project agreement, and it authorizes the president and secretary to execute it once your legal counsel and your special counsel say that it is an absolute final form for execution. Again, substantially final in our world is that the terms, the financial terms do not change. There is some legal just work within here to make sure both parties are exactly happy with how certain language is written. But other than that, the financials will not change.
When it comes back to us, Exhibit A is in our package today, marked as a draft as of 11/1. Would that come back completely filled in the next time we see it?
We can bring this back at your next meeting where we're going to ask you for the pledge. We can bring back the final version.
Excellent.
And with respect to Exhibit A, Kim, to what extent have you and AJ been up to your eyeballs in this, or have you?
I think AJ has been more involved than I have been. I did review this material, and I was very glad that Lisa was going to be here today, but I think AJ's been a bit more.
AJ has been involved from the very, very beginning. I know in the last couple weeks with this trial, he has not been able to be involved, but he has been involved in every turn of the document and reviewed all the changes each time.
Thank you.
Other questions? Well, this is certainly one of the most significant resolutions that we have had before us, probably in anyone's term here that's sitting on the current commission. We recognize that this is a large project with a tremendous impact on our community, and we appreciate all the work that's gone into it. And we are all about redevelopment, and this is certainly a project that qualifies as redevelopment. Do I hear a motion in regards
So
to
moved.
Resolution 11, 2023?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 11, 2023, a resolution approving the project agreement for the redevelopment of the Elder Beerman Building. Would you please call the roll?
Jenny Lawman,
I agree.
Kathy Lucid,
Aye.
Gary Turner,
Aye.
Allison Zygel.
Aye.
Motion carries. Motion is approved. Thank you very much for all the work. We look forward to starting to see this progress in our city. Thank you very much. If there's no further business to come before the commission today, we are adjourned.